Welcome to Seth's Daily Podcast here on Nighthawk Radio. To listen to Nighthawk Radio, go to nighthawk-radio.com. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube Music, everywhere you find good podcasts. We're blessed enough to have a guest all the way from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, Steve Ward. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on the show.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be on, man. Definitely. And you have your own radio show as well, right?
Yes, it's the High Strangeness Factor on the Paranormal UK radio network. It's on a whole bunch of platforms. I had two co-hosts. Andy Mercer and I started the podcast about 5 years ago, and he's the producer as well. We also have Susie Bastille, who's also known as the Pugwudgie Whisperer. And so Andy and I have been doing it for years. Susie's a little more recent, maybe a year or so, and it's really a good time.
Now, what day of the week does that show come out and what time?
Well, it comes out as a podcast, and normally it's every 2 weeks, so I can close the show and say, "See you again in a fortnight." But in reality, it takes a little longer sometimes to get out. Uh, One of the most recent shows we did was Richard Hatem, who wrote the screenplay for the Mothman Prophecies and was at the Mothman Festival this past year.
That's very cool, man. Very cool. Speaking of the festival, man, how did it go this year?
They claimed there was something like 33,000 people that went through that weekend. So and it could be, I'm really busy with I do a lot of stuff beforehand, but during the festival, I'm on the north end of town at the church up there as MC for the speakers. We have speakers on Saturday and Sunday covering all kinds of topics, and so I and also I speak the last to talk on Sunday. And it's just I barely had any time to get down to the festival. In the good old days, I used to just wander around and I tell people I would get the Mothman fever, start buying everything with Mothman on it, books, t-shirts, and everything. But now I've got responsibilities.
Definitely, man, you're a busy guy during the festival for sure.
Oh yeah.
So, when you was in the TNT area, did you hear anything weird or see anything weird?
No, I was there a few days ahead of time, as I have been doing, and setting up giant spider webs and creatures with glowing eyes and all kinds of stuff. The main event though is the Mothman. My buddies John and Tim Frick, they fly the Mothman during the Mothman hayride on Saturday night. So, but the I did have one weird experience coming out of the TNT area several years ago. We John, Tim, and I had gone down there. This was, gosh, it's over a decade, I think, when one of the TNT area, they call it that because they made explosives there during World War II. And you can look at the old black and white photographs of the way the complex used to look. By the 60s, when they started seeing the Mothman in that area and all over the Ohio Valley, it was most of the structures were torn down. And of course, nowadays there are still some remnants, but there's not a whole lot left. And so that one back over a decade ago, we went down. There was the igloo. Somebody had stored some explosives in one that were illegal, apparently. And one night it blew its top. It blew its concrete top off, blew the metal doors out. And we went down there a week later to see it. And you can still see it. It's all overgrown. It's on Eagle Road number 7 off Potters Creek Road. And so I went out there alone one night on that road, not all the way down to that igloo, but and just to see if I had the intestinal fortitude to go out in the TNT area alone at night. Now it's no big deal. The locals go out there all the time. So I did that, and I started driving back on Route 62 back into town. I experienced a couple flashes of light, like a strobe, like a flash and a flash, and I don't know where it came from, and I didn't I did everything wrong. I should have tried to figure out where this happened along the road so I could come back the next day and check it out. So anyway, I drove down and I went across the river to the motel I was staying in. I opened the door, and the TV set turned on by itself and started flipping steadily through stations. Now, this kind of thing never happens to me. This happens to other people, and they tell me their story. And I thought, so, and I looked at the clock and I thought, well, I didn't, I thought that maybe I better check to see if I had any missing time. And at the time, I didn't think I did. But in looking back, again, I didn't write anything down. I wasn't, I just kind of rolled with it. I don't know. But I unplugged the TV and went to bed. So I didn't do any investigation or anything. A year later, I'm in the next room in that motel with, in fact, John and Tim Frick. We're all crammed in there trying to save money. And it's about the same month, a year later. And we're talking in the room. TV set turns on by itself. And we thought, wow, that's weird. And the next day, Tim and I went in for some reason during the day. TV set turned on by itself and then flipped through a couple stations. And it's one of these, it's an old style TV. In fact, it's like the one, remember Poltergeist at the end when they go to the motel and they push the TV set out on the out of the room? It looked like one of those TV sets. So we tried to get scientific. We tried to zap the remote control through walls or whatever, nothing. And so I think it was a few years later. It was during a festival. Two couples that we knew were staying in the room next to that room, which is a corner room and a lot bigger. They had a kind of a smart TV, and they were having trouble with the volume. And it would get lower and lower, and they to keep cranking it up, and all of a sudden it would start blasting. And they go through this process, and then all of a sudden a pop can flew off the nightstand, the table next to the bed. So I don't know what was going on there. I tell people that if I actually brought something back with me that night, he's still there flipping channels and he did not come home with me. So that's my big paranormal experience. And so I never saw or heard anything in the TNT area. But it's pretty creepy out there at night. It's even creepy in the daytime.
Yeah, I've heard that from lots of people. It's creepy out there. Ain't that actually where the first sighting of Mothman Endpoint Plaza was, ain't it?
The first the Scarberries and the Mallets.
Yeah. For people that don't
Were
know that story, can you tell us about it?
Well, it was November 15th, 1966. They were on going south on the dirt road next to the Old North Power Plant, which was torn down in the 90s. And I actually saw that when I went down there in 1977. But they were driving along the road. Linda Scarberry said, and this is about 11 p.m. In fact, I was down there a few weeks ago on the anniversary, the 59th anniversary of that sighting on that same road. And she said, well, what's that man doing standing in the middle of the road? And that man spread his wings and kind of shuffled off through the gate toward the Old North Power Plant. Well, they saw the red eyes. They took off. It chased them into town. And it was 6, 7 foot tall, red glowing eyes, 10-foot wingspan, roughly humanoid. It was dubbed the Mothman by some copy editor later on. It really didn't look like a moth at all. So that's how that started. And I was able to speak to Linda Scarberry several times over the years. She never changed her story. And last summer, Roger Scarberry, the guy that was driving the car, he came to talk to Jeff Wamsley, that runs the Mothman Museum, established the museum back in 2006. And also, he has a couple other stores, but he also co-founded the Mothman Festival. So he went to Jeff and he said, Jeff, people keep telling my story and they keep getting it wrong. So he gave Jeff another long form interview about what happened. I was in on part of that interview, but it is under double secret probation because Jeff is going to publish it in his next book. Another early witness came forward. Some of these people gave their interviews initially over half a century ago, and then they just were quiet. Connie Carpenter, if you have read the book The Mothman Prophecies, she was driving by the Mason County golf course, and she saw this thing standing there with red eyes, took off straight like a helicopter, flew over her car. She had a case of conjunctivitis, eye burn afterwards. It lasted several days. That's oftentimes people that have had a close proximity with some kind of a strange craft or strange light has that happen. It does happen apparently with cryptids or unknown creatures, but not often. So she came forward and she gave Jeff an interview. And then there's one more. Uh, a few months ago, a man named Emil Gibson. Now, there was actually a sighting of whatever this was or something very similar a few days before on about November 11th or 12th, I think. And it was in Clendenin at the cemetery there. There were five men digging a grave, and they saw this thing come through the trees. Now, I joke, I say, can you imagine you're digging a grave and you see this apparition or this creature? Wouldn't you get another profession? But Emil actually said he didn't see it because he was down in the grave digging. He heard the commotion of his buddies, the other four guys. They pulled him up. He said by the look on their faces, they weren't kidding. They saw something pretty frightening. He kept quiet. He only told his family about that 2 years ago. But he came forward and so Jeff already has two books out, Mothman, The Facts Behind the Legend, and Mothman Behind the Red Eyes. So this will make a trilogy for him, and everybody's kind of anticipating this next book. He's got more material to put in it that he's had on the back burner for a while.
That's awesome, man. Do you know when that book will be out?
I don't, and he doesn't know either. Jeff is so busy. I mean, he's retired, but he's not a retired man of leisure. He's got the Mothman Museum. He's got the Point Pleasant Trading Company right next door, where you can buy more good stuff. If you go upstairs in that building, you can play Mothman Blacklight Mini Golf, and the graphics are amazing. He also established a escape room, a Mothman escape room, and he's got a few stores south uh, on Main Street. He's got Bunker 304, which is like a vinyl shop, a bunch of old records and music and memorabilia. So, and he's always got plans for something else. So he's a very busy guy, and but we really can't wait for that next book to come out.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome, man. Are you in that book?
Let's see. I don't know. I don't think I paid him enough money to be in that book. I yeah, I haven't like I say, I haven't had too much happen to me, but maybe I'll get a footnote. Who knows?
You got any books up?
Well, I have I co-authored a book with Mark Randall. Mark Randall is the great graphic artist. If you check him out on Amazon, or can find him at one of these festivals or conferences, we did a book together called Mothman High Strangeness, and it chronicles that year. All the events that happened. It's got a piece on John Keel, the Mothman, the bridge collapse, Indrid Cold, Men in Black. It just covers the whole spectrum. I wrote four of the pieces to go along with the illustrations, and Mark wrote the rest. So, and I can't take credit for any of the great illustrations either. Anything I would be illustrating would probably just be in purple crayon, and they'd know right away. So, but it's a great book. You can get it on Amazon for about $15, I think. I've contributed two or three chapters to books over the years about the Mothman, but and I allegedly I'm writing my own book, which I tell people will be out sometime this decade.
This decade. Now, speaking of, I heard you talk about the smiling man a little bit.
Oh, the Grinning Man, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really strange. Some people connect him with Indrid Cold. Indrid
Yeah,
Cold was a,
that's what I
and,
was,
and some people separate it. Uh, Indrid Cold was, it's one of these things where some of it seems like it might be legitimate, and some of it is just absolutely off the charts crazy. Woodrow Derenberger. Now, if you've seen the film, Gordon Smallwood is kind of like the Woodrow Derenberger character, just or partly. And the Indrid Cold character in the movie is a combination of um, Indrid Cold in the Mothman Prophecies, another entity named Mr. Apple, spelled Apol, and we don't really know if that was really an actual entity or this guy was just this intelligence or whatever was being channeled. But well, I try to condense this as much as I can. On early in November, There was a man that was driving down Route 77. I think he had a partner in his truck, and this elongated craft kind of comes down and comes alongside and kind of eases him off the road. And he rolls down his window and he has this conversation with this man, this grinning man, in some kind of, I think he was in some kind of I don't remember on this one. I know Derenberger said he was in some kind of a shiny suit or whatever, but this guy had his arms crossed and he was kind of smiling, asked a series of pointless questions. I mean, if we are to think this guy is some kind of an extraterrestrial visiting the Earth, he isn't much of a conversationalist. Anyway, this guy, there isn't much detail to it. He got a hold of Mary Hyre. Mary Hyre was the friend and colleague of John Keel, the reporter that had the column Where the Waters Mingle. And he said, he started drinking. He said, I just got to tell somebody about this. So he tells the story, and and John Keel's gonna run it as a report. And then the guy says, we've decided not to go with it. And Keel said, why? And he said, well, that scientist fella said we should just forget all about it. And Keel says, what scientist fella? And he says, I don't know. He seemed to know what he was talking about. And Keel said, well, how did he find out about your sighting? You only told Mary Hyre and myself. And he said, damned if I know. And then so Keel didn't run with it because it was a total blind item. And then a few days later, or very shortly after, Woodrow Derenberger had a very similar story, only he went to the police and he was interviewed. Same kind of thing. Only this guy said his name was Cold, and later on he said he was having like telepathic communications with Derenberger, supposedly. Supposedly, some people saw the craft overhead when Derenberger was talking to him. But later on, he wrote a book, self-published book called Visitors from Lanulos, where it just goes off the charts crazy. It suggests that his years ago, his stepdaughter, who's no longer with us, she reviewed the book on Amazon and said that her father, actually stepfather, did have some initial experiences, but he embellished things later on, which may be true. And then there was another case several months later. Keel runs into a woman in Gallipolis, Ohio, across the river. She's having all kinds of bizarre stuff going on her farm. At cattle mutilations. Her son is seeing these large boxcar-like craft flying overhead. Classic haunting phenomena inside the house, apparitions walking through walls. And she leaves work one night. She's a nurse, and the parking lot's vacant. Another one of these elongated craft come down, and these two guys come out in coveralls, sort of Indrid Cold types, I guess, but they didn't identify themselves with a name. Another pointless conversation. She can't move, and then they go away. And then she says to Keel, very worriedly, she said, "Did that man," meaning Woodrow Derenberger, "ever see Indrid Cold again?" And Keel said, "Well, he said he did." She said, "Well, I saw them again." She saw them in plain clothes in downtown Gallipolis, she said one day, and she passed them, and they kind of nodded at her like in recognition, like, "Oh, nice to see you again." And so it's just crazy. I don't know how you sort out anything like that. But then there's other separate. There was oh gosh, in New Jersey. What year was it? It was something that Keel and others investigated. Two boys saw this tall figure with kind of a silvery I don't know, suit on or something like that. It was right near the turnpike, I think. And they saw this man, this tall man, with a grin behind this gate. They didn't know how he got back there. He was just kind of staring at them. He was a classic grinning man. People have these kind of I think the Lilies on Camp Conley Road, which is the southern end of the TNT area. They had the bedroom apparitions, and sometimes these apparitions are almost like Men in Black type, in dark suits and fedoras. Only they're apparitions; they're not real, apparently not real physical beings. And sometimes they sort of, it's very hard to put these things in categories. It's but credible people keep reporting the same kinds of phenomena, and so it's something I don't think we can just ignore.
No, they're definitely seeing something.
Absolutely. And then you find there are patterns. People that don't know each other will report the same kind of things. And so that's the that makes it seem like there might be some credibility to them.
Yeah, what's really funny is you said that woman seen them on the street.
Yeah. You know, of course, she was gone to the police and told them about her, all the stuff going on, and they just think that she was nuts. They just brushed it off. But Keel saw that, these are patterns that show up with people. So he didn't just discount it.
Yeah, they're definitely seeing something, man. And speaking of Man in Black, they was also in Point Pleasant as well.
Yes. The and the Men in Black, the classic Men in Black, supposedly these guys show up in dark suits. Some of them are very creepy. Some just look like creepy government types, and they tell people to, not talk about the sighting, or they try to confiscate photographs or whatever. That's kind of the classic one. But there's more than one answer to some of these. The in the Mothman prophecies, one day John Keel noticed these all these guys in town, and he said to Mary Hyre, "Is there some kind of convention going on?" She said, "Yeah, I noticed them too. And there were a bunch of guys in dark suits, skinny ties, close cropped hair, and like I say, no personality." And Keel tried to engage some of them in conversation, and they would just avoid him. Now these are probably government types from, I don't know, CIA, FBI, uh, checking out, and they'd probably heard all the strange reports of things going on between UFOs and the Mothman. Maybe they were just checking it out. Now, Jeff Walmsley told me that some years back, he's got some displays in the Mothman Museum, mannequins dressed up like the Men in Black, and with an explanation as to what the lore was all about. So one day his mom was in there, and she pointed at one of those and said, "Well, what is this?" And so he gave her the background, the history and the folklore, and she said, we were seeing them in town back in the 60s. And Jeff said, "Mom, you know how long I've been doing this, and you're just telling me this now?" And he said, "Where did you see them?" And she said, she said, outside of Mary Hyre's office. And she also said that when they would cross the street, if there were two of them, they would cross together and stay in step. Um, so, who knows? There's some really bizarre cases where these guys seem to show up out of nowhere without a car, and vanish without a car. Very, very odd. Linda Sigmund, who is one of the original Mothman witnesses, she's not mentioned in the Mothman prophecies, but she has a book out. I think it's called Beyond the Pale Moonlight. She was 16 years old. She was about 10 miles north of Point Pleasant, and with she and her boyfriend were just sitting on the roof of the car, on the hood of the car, watching the stars. Had a couple of I'm condensing this heavily. She had a couple of they had a couple of sightings of strange lights in the sky, and he decided he wanted to take off. And as he's taking off, she's has her head outside the window because she wants to see the second light that showed up. And it seemed like this Mothman-like figure is flying next to it. And they had missing time. There's a few people that encountered the Mothman that had missing time. This thing exhibited very, very strange behavior. It wasn't consistent. While for the most part, it looked consistent, not always. But anyway, that was April of '67. And as you know, it was December 15th, 1967, that the Silver Bridge collapsed. That was 13 months to the day that the Scarberries and the Mallets first saw this thing. Well, in early December, before the bridge collapse, Linda was in downtown Point Pleasant. She went to go into a store. She saw this strange guy. It's night. He's classic black suit, black fedora, dark sunglasses. She passed him to go into the store. He had kind of odd skin, like kind of almost like grayish skin. She came out of the store. He's still around, but there's another one down by the light pole, dressed exactly the same, not saying anything. So she and they were just told, that these guys were probably just government agents, and they kind of just glossed over the really odd aspects of them. But a few years later, when the Mothman prophecies came out, and she read the book, she thought, "My God, that's exactly what I experienced with these guys downtown." So it's if you there are many good books. Nick Redfern has written a couple of books. Jenny Randalls has written a book, a British researcher on the Men in Black. Gray Barker, of course, wrote the original, but he was a little fanciful in some of his reports. So it's an enigma. There is something to it, but people should remember that, we've been in this field for a while, and you do know it does attract some oddballs. Okay, so some of the Men in Black reports might just be people that are a little bit off center and not really anything really very sinister. So you just have to be very careful in wading through all this and trying to figure out what's real and what's not.
Yeah. What's really creepy is you said that they was seen with no vehicles though. That seems like possibly maybe an alien that like teleported there or something, or
Uh,
had a
well,
ship somewhere
I,
else or something.
I don't know. There was there was a case that some people think he made it up, but I don't know. Dr. Hopkins out of Maine, goes back a ways in the 70s. He was associated with Dr. Berthold Schwartz, who wrote a great book called UFO Dynamics, and he covers this in there. And there was some kind of a case that he investigated, the Stevens case, I think. And Dr. Hopkins, his wife and kid, went out to the movies or whatever. He was alone. He gets a call, and this somebody says he's from such and such an organization. He wants to check would like to check the files on the Stevens case. So I said, sure, come on over. And almost immediately, this guy shows up at his front door. And this guy's just very odd. It's like he doesn't have a hair on his face. It seems like he has kind of some lipstick on to give his lips some color. He moves kind of slow. He's just very kind of sinister. And he does something where he uh, he holds a coin in his hand, closes his hand, the coin disappears, and he says, "Do you know how Barney Hill died?" And he's referring, of course, to the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case in the early '60s. Barney Hill died of a stroke, and he said, "Well, do you know how Barney Hill died?" And Hopkins said, "Well, I think it was a heart attack." Of course, it wasn't. And this creepy guy said, "No, he died because he had no heart, just like I made this coin disappear." And Hopkins is wondering, "What the hell is this?" And so the guy leaves, and he doesn't see a car or whatever. And it's just really unnerving. He decided to get out of the UFO field and destroy the files and everything. So, and again, who knows if, and you can find Hopkins' testimony. There's a website called the Faded Discs Archive. Faded Discs Archive. Check that out. Click on Wendy Connors, that name. Under Wendy Connors, there's all kinds of information, audio from classic UFO history, close encounters of the third kind, fourth kind. There's a high strangeness section. The number three high strangeness item is the Dr. Hopkins interview, which is to last over a half hour. You hear it in his own words. There's just all kinds of amazing information there. So you just have to, a lot of it you have to just kind of step back, take with a grain of salt, because we just really don't know. You're dealing with the testimony of people that don't have any witnesses often.
Yeah. There's definitely something going on though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just don't know what it is exactly.
No, I sure don't know. John Keel was never able to solve the mystery of the Mothman. He used terms like he did not think we were dealing with something extraterrestrial. He thought it was something natural to the planet that we did not understand. So he used terms like ultra terrestrials, kind of a literary device. He borrowed it he said, from his friend and colleague Ivan Sanderson. The great British naturalist, wrote great books on UFOs. And Keel would talk about some of these things perhaps being temporal, transmogrifications of energy. These entities or even craft would temporarily manifest and then even leave physical evidence, but then sort of fade away or dissipate. So it's always difficult to condense some of Keel's ideas in a paragraph. But he's somebody that you should really check out. Books like Operation Trojan Horse is kind of a advanced course in this. If you want to start with something a little more gentle, pick up Strange Creatures from Time and Space, which was retitled The Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings. And that in that book, he kind of eases you into some of these ideas, some of the way these things connect, window areas, transmogrification of energy, that kind of thing. Uh, and then, it's almost like you should read some of these books before you get to the Mothman Prophecies, because the Mothman Prophecies is a wild book, man. If you have no idea what about some of this phenomena, it'll throw you for a loop.
Definitely, man. It's been fun, Steve. I appreciate you, man. Tell us what shows you got upcoming.
I'm sorry.
What shows you got upcoming on your podcast.
Well, I'm going to be interviewing a gentleman that's known as the Creature Seeker. It has run the Creature Weekend several years past in Salt Fork State Park. And so that's going to be coming up. Also, in the not too distant future, a gentleman named Horace C. Smith, who was taught astronomy at the University of Michigan, and he um, has had several great books out on an area in Connecticut that had a lot of phenomena going on. Willimatic, was it, if I just said that right, skies. And uh, so anyway, and plus there's a backlog of several years. If you go to Paranormal UK Radio, check out the High Strangers Factor, you'll find just a lot of great shows from the past.
Definitely, man. I appreciate you, Steve. Appreciate everybody listening. Everybody have a good night and God bless.
Thank you.